Welcome to another episode of Real Talk No Filtre. This is your host, David. I have the lovely Renata, which has a very interesting story of how she transformed and traveled all over the world and became what she says on her podcast, Wonder Woman. So, Renata, tell me about yourself.
Hi, first of all, that I'm here today on this podcast. I'm really excited. So, my name is Renata. I'm originally from Germany. I'm living in Brisbane, Australia at the moment. And I'm a coach. I'm a women's coach and also a Reiki healer. And I'm usually helping women to overcome anxiety and fear to make confident decisions for themselves. And it's basically I'm helping women what I've been through. So I overcame a lot of fears, shame, a lot of things in my life. So that's what I'm here for now. I feel like it's my desire to really help women to recognize that they have a power in them and a Wonder Woman, because I think we all have a Wonder Woman or like a superhero inside of us, but sometimes we forget
it. I like how that says, because I love the idea of the superhero. I used to love Batman, and Batman was like my character. And after a while, I'm like, I don't like him no more. So I'm like, you know what? I looked at different Marvel characters and I'm like, you know what? I like DC better. So I went over to Superman. I'm like, Superman is my guy. He comes in there. I love when he takes off all that power and so on and so forth. I just one thing that I've actually learned from saying all this was I positioned myself to start making inspirational quotes. And one of my inspirational quotes that I wrote, and I have little stickies all over my wall over here, it says, when you decide to stand on top of the world, you do not fear what is in it. And I love that expression. And now that I think about it with that Superman mentality, and he really does stand at the peak of the world, and he waits and listens out for someone calling for Superman, and then he dives in and saves them. I'm not saying I'm going to dive in and save people like Superman, but I just have that. I'm trying to develop that personification to be standing on top of the world and not worrying about this and that, but really just moving forward. So that's my current mentality on that. But back to Renata.
I can so resonate with that. You know, I love superhero movies. I always loved Marvel movies. I love DC movies. I also switch between them. You know, I recently watched Justice League.
Oh, and yes.
It was so good. It's just like, you know, I just love it, you know, especially when superheroes working together. I always loved Guardians of the Galaxy too. I think I love every movie, every Marvel movie. Yeah, awesome.
We should one day do a podcast of us like talking about all Marvel movies and DC. That'll be pretty cool.
Yes, yeah, that would be awesome. Oh my god, I would be in it. Definitely, it's big passion. Yeah.
Going back towards your story, you mentioned going through a hard time, going through shame, and then going through your Reiki healing, traveling the world. Tell me more about that.
Yes, for sure. So, where should I start? You know, sometimes it's funny when people say, yeah, tell me about your story, because I would just love to even tell them about my childhood a bit. So maybe a little bit about me too before that all kind of started. So I was a kid at school which was really, really shy, and I always thought I don't really have anything to say. I didn't have any friends at school. But then it was really interesting. I think when I was around 12 or 13, I decided to go out and join a lot of clubs and to get a lot of friends, because I came to the conclusion, I think I actually have to go out and do things, because sometimes we think everything comes to us, and that's just how the world works, and I don't have to do anything. So I always thought there's something wrong with me. and that, you know, nobody wants to be a friend of mine. But then I decided, no, go out and try to get friends or try to build relationships. And that's what I did basically. So I took action and I joined volleyball club, theater club. I joined so many clubs. And then I suddenly had a lot of friends. And I always thought that's not really possible for me. And that's really interesting because that kind of followed me throughout my whole life, that you know, this reconditioning of old paradigms of society's beliefs. That's how the world looks like. But I was always different. And so when I was 18, after my A levels, I decided to travel to New Zealand. So instead of studying, I decided to travel the world. And, you know, and that was always my biggest dream. But the funny thing is, before traveling to New Zealand, I actually thought I can't go to New Zealand because I didn't have enough money. I was coming from quite a poor family, and I thought, you know, I just couldn't afford going to New Zealand. It was like 2,000, 3,000 euros back then. And then luckily I got accepted to work for Mercedes-Benz for a month, which really, you know, it allowed me to go to New Zealand, and you get really good money for Mercedes-Benz. And then I went to New Zealand. I did 9 months of traveling New Zealand, and that completely changed my life. So first of all, when I got to New Zealand, I actually had a car crash. Oh, wow. So I was in a car accident, and yeah, it was really interesting. You know, you come into a new country, and it was after a couple of days, we rented a car, and that one of our drivers, he was not really used to the streets in New Zealand, and then a bus hit us. Oh, wow. And I was sitting on the side where the bus hit us in the car. And I can't remember anything from the accident. I can't remember anything. You know, I woke up in hospital. Yeah. And I was seeing my friends, and they were all like really worried. And I'm like, hey guys, what's up? You know, I'm like, what happened? And then I remember I started crying because they said to me that, you know, the clothes I was wearing, they're all broken because of the accident. And I was crying because of that. I was like, oh no, I love my clothes. No. You know, and I didn't even care about what happened to me because it was like, no. But it was interesting because it gave me a hard lesson in a way. And I think for weeks, I was not really feeling well. I couldn't do much. I was supposed to rest, and I'm a person, I'm really fast paced, and I love to do things. I love to go out. So I feel really restricted. And so I actually thought, oh, why am I in New Zealand? I just want to go back to Germany. Yeah. And it was so frustrating for me. But then suddenly, I think also back then, I was still with a boyfriend from Germany, but then we broke up. Also around the time when I had the accident. So I think that was a bit hard for me too, because I was like, oh, a breakup, the accident, and I just felt a bit lost in myself. But suddenly, you know, you just get to know more people, and the more you share your story, and the more you go out, I felt more connected, and also just, I think I was just experiencing life from another perspective, because in Germany, the life is so different. It's so different from New Zealand, or I guess even from Canada, where you live. So I realized that you can live life in a much more easier way, much more lighter way. And there's so many possibilities out there, and you actually don't have to do what society says you should do. You should go to university, you should get a job, and then you have a family. No, it's like you can build your life on your own terms. And then we met so many people on the way, and it was such a cool time, you know, because I really went out of my comfort zone, and I did things that I never done before. So I hitchhiked, and I was a bit scary at first, you know, I was hitchhiking through New Zealand, but I loved it so much, you know. You meet these people in the car, and you would have never met them before.
Yeah.
And you just you know, it's just wonderful, lovely people, and then you hear their stories about their own life, and you realize that this world is so big, and it's so massive, and it's like your mindset is shifting, and you expand your vision. And yeah, it's incredible. So I was in New Zealand for 9 months. I met my ex-partner there, and so we also traveled the South Island in New Zealand for a month or so, and that was really cool too. We couch surfed at some places, and couch surfing is a great way to, you know, connect with people as well, and to stay at places for free. It's amazing. It's so cool, and the cultural exchange is amazing too. So we did that for a while, and you know, just when I reflect back, I always realize there's some sort of connection when you travel, or that you've been guided in some sort of way, and that it all makes so much sense that, you know, things sometimes aren't working out, but then you've been guided to something else, and then you realize, oh, that's the reason why that happened, because otherwise you would have never met that person. And you would have never had that experience in your life. And it was so amazing for me to see, because I actually shifted my whole perspective on, you know, the universe and God, and that actually, you know, the universe is guiding us, and that we're all connected in some sort of way. And then I went back to Germany. I felt like a different person. And, you know, a lot of my friends that went to university, and I couldn't really understand what I've been through. And yeah, so it was really hard for me to be in one place again, because I just made this massive experience. And my partner, he flew to Germany for me, and we traveled 6 months Europe together, and that was incredible too, because we just had 2,000 euros and we had like no clue how we should do that. We had like absolutely no clue how we should survive 2,000 euros, 6 months traveling. You know, like so many people would say, how did you do that? Like they would spend like 10,000 or more on accommodation, on food, or anything, right? But I think it really it pressured us to think big, and to think out of to go out of our comfort zone. And to do
things. Be very creative in a sense.
Yes. We became like so creative, and, you know, kind of really inventive. We're like, okay, how can we make that possible? And then we did a lot of couch surfing. I remember I think we did mostly couch surfing, and then we did a lot of work away, which is like working on organic farms, or you do other things. Maybe you know that.
One of my friends, he likes to travel, and what he does, he takes like a $10,000 loan out, and then he goes and travels, and then he goes and works in that country, like where he wants to travel, just to pay off the 10,000 loan and then come back.
Oh,
So
wow.
that's his way of actually just traveling the world. So I'm like, that's pretty neat. Yeah.
Yes, that's a cool way to do it, actually. Yeah, I love
Mhm.
that. Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, there's just, there's so many ways you can actually travel. And
Mhm.
I think so many friends also ask me, how can you do that? Because they think you have to save so much money and then you can go traveling. But you actually don't have to have a lot of money. You just have to take the action. You have to be willing to go traveling, and then
Mhm.
on the way you will meet people who give you maybe some ideas on how to save money. And I think we learned so much on the way, so much. And we did this incredible route. So we started in the south of Germany, then we went to Austria. I think we couch surfed in Austria. We did a bit of work away, and I taught a refugee German for a
Oh
week.
wow.
That
Yeah,
was really cool.
that is awesome.
Yes, I think that was actually around the time when a lot of refugees had to flee
Mhm.
from Syria. So it was really interesting times too, because after that we went to Turkey, and I think it was 1 month after a bomb was going off in Istanbul,
Mhm.
and we actually were there where it happened. And there were so many refugees already in Turkey, and it was really intense. Like, we were a bit scared.
Yeah.
And yeah, it was just amazing, because also on the way you meet people who can also help you. And I remember there was this one Turkish man, and he drove us 10 hours from Romania to Turkey. And it was incredible, just because I think we did some work away for his family.
Mhm.
And I looked after the daughter and taught her some German. And then he's like, oh, yeah, I'm driving to Turkey next week, and then you see these signs, and then you act on them, and you're like, oh, can we go with you?
Mhm.
And then it was incredible. So we drove to Turkey with him, and we drove through Bulgaria. So we saw Bulgaria on the way, and then we were at the border into Turkey, and Turkey is a total different life as well. It's so different from our Western culture.
Yep. Yep.
Have you ever been to Turkey or?
No, I've seen like pictures and videos of Turkey itself, and which I fully agree with you. It looks very like the buildings are very different. I think it looks very pleasant just by looking at it. One thing that I would like to say though is I believe that if you never took your leap in when you were 12 and 13, and like from holding yourself back and actually putting yourself out there, I don't think you'll actually have all these adventures that you're
Mm,
actually having. So it'll be very interesting to see in going back to Marvel, the multi-universe, um, if you never took that route in life to actually make that jump and leap and make yourself out there, what your life would actually be like. So
mm.
that's actually interesting though. Yeah.
Yes, yes, that's what I sometimes think too, because I was back then, when you're so young, you of course don't really go out much, because
Mhm.
I don't know, it's just like something you don't really do. But I had like an inner knowing, or like an intuition, which was saying to me, I just, try out a few things. And then suddenly, I had this incredible teenager life with so many friends, with so many experiences. I almost had too many friends back then. It was so funny, because a lot of my friends were like, oh my God, you're always on the road and you always do something. And then I sometimes had to realize, like, oh my God, like a few years before that, when I was like so shy, I didn't have any friends, it was so different, because I thought I don't have anything to say, I don't have anything to share.
Mhm.
And it is really interesting, because I think our childhood, and especially our school time, really shapes us in the way we act in this world, and also shapes us how we act with other people and communities, with anything in the world, really. So that was a huge time for me. And, you know, sometimes I don't even look back, but it's really good to remind yourself that, what would actually happen if I wouldn't have took that step. And I think everyone can ask that question to themselves, like when you wouldn't have took that decision to maybe go to another country, or, you know, I don't know, maybe it is actually you going to university, you know, and studying something. And maybe that's what you're meant to do here as well. So I think for me, it's also important to see that, you know, I'm just different and I do things differently, but not everyone is maybe here to do that, or not everyone is, you know, how should I say? Not everyone is on the same path in that sense.
Yeah.
And I think I just have to go through different pains, different struggles, to help people who maybe go through the same things, and to guide them out of that, and to show them a different way. Hey, there's a different way of living. And I am just different. And I think back then it was really hard for me to accept the fact that I'm different, because I always wanted to be part of something. I always wanted to be part of, you know, the normal world, or what we name as normal, you know. But what is normal anyway? You know,
it's subjective, and you're right, because no one knows what normal is. Normal is it's like saying what is beautiful, right? It's something like a word like beautiful. What is normal? Those things, it's very subjective on the eyes of the beholder, right? We don't know what normal is. Normal could just be someone that has ADD, for example, or a mental issue. They might look at world and how what they're doing is normal, while the world looks at them as like, no, that's not normal, right? So those things, it's very subjective in that sense of what is normal and what is beautiful. So it's very interesting, just the words that we use some days. We have to kind of really look at it and say, is it a world that is universal to everybody, or is it a word just for a specific group of people? And that's different, because if you look at, let's say, the animal kingdom, you could see all these animals and they're all shaped differently and so on and so forth. They don't look at each other and think, hey, you're different than I am. If a lion looks at another lion and let's say half its mane, it's gone, still a lion no matter what. It still has his teeth, it still has his claws, it still growls the same way. There's no difference. And I think, and I've mentioned this in my previous podcast, it's a fact that we throw labels onto each other and just either make yourself look more superior than others. And that's the biggest key with these podcasts, is the fact that, guess what, at the end of the day, we might label each other, but we're human.
Yeah.
At the end of the day.
Yeah, and we still make mistakes, you know. We still
exactly.
We actually still are the same, you know. We all have emotions in us, you know. And I think to accept our humanness, and that we you know, we fall, we rise up again, and that's just like the normal thing of life. Like, we suffer to learn things, you know. We sometimes have to go through a lot of suffering to just, you know, look back and think, oh my God, that was actually my greatest gift, you know. That was the best thing that could have happened to me. And when you come to that conclusion that actually life is happening for you, instead of thinking life is happening against you, I think that's when you realize that you actually have so much power, and you can create the world you want, and the world like you desire. And there are actually no limitations out there. It's just the limitations you put on yourself, and also the conditioning from your past, but to really de-link yourself from all the things you've learned, and like relearn everything, like how to do things. And that you know, you don't have to be always in your masculine, and you have to get things done, and you know, all these that's the structure, and that's for everyone, and you should do it like that too. No, it's actually not like that. Everyone can have their own opinion,
Yeah.
you know.
One thing I need to understand, you mentioned that you're more free in New Zealand / Australia than you were in Germany. Is that how it is in Germany? And honestly, I don't know what Germany is about. In a westernized look of Germany, for example, or Russia, it seems like a very structured country, and there's not much freedom that's there to give each person to have that freedom to express themselves. Correct me if I'm wrong. I'm more than willing to learn.
Yes, so yeah, it is really structured. You know, we have our structures, we have our routines, and I'm from the South, and it's really interesting because even when you're in Germany, the South has something against the North people, you know, and the North people say something about the South. And, you know, and they say about our South people that we complain a lot, and, you know, we're really negative, and that the North people are really relaxed. But it's funny, when we're there, we think the North people are really complaining. And oh my gosh, it's just like, it's really funny. Like, I think, you know, or where I used to live, yeah, people think in a box, and it's not much, yeah, there are not many ideas really, you know. And I think I felt more free in New Zealand and Australia. I just like the energy here. It's such more, for me, it's much more freedom and ability to express yourself and to be how you are. I felt in Germany, because I'm such a free spirit, I'm so open-minded, I just didn't like the structure. I just didn't like to be put in a box, you know. I'm too loud, or I'm talking too much, or I'm too sensitive, or I'm too much that, whatever. And it is actually quite typical for a German person, you know, that they say to you, you know, your language is so funny, and you talk so much, and you talk so loud, and you're so expressive. But it's so funny, when you're in that culture, you feel like you're not belonging for some reason. And that's just how I felt, and that's my experience with it. And I know that a lot of Germans who travel as well, they have the same experience. They say they feel so different when they're traveling. They feel so much more accepted, and they're so much more open than they were back in Germany. And I do love my home country, and I do love my language, and there's something really nice about, you know, your mother language and where you're coming from. So I really honor that part, because when I was 18, I started to hate Germany. You know, I started to hate that I was coming from this country, and everyone can just associate the World War II with it, you know, in the Nazi time. And for me, you know, I always saw myself more living on an island and kind of like easygoing, and I don't know, you know, just yeah, like a bird, you know, being free.
You
And
seem
as
free.
I said, yeah,
You seem very
yes.
free. You seem very relaxed, and which is fantastic. It's very interesting that you're saying this. It's just the fact that, like, when we get that notion of Germany, it's very structured, and I'm not glad to hear that it's like that. It's my mind right now is all over the place with that. It's just, I just wish that people were more free and
Yeah.
could be able to express themselves. I know there's other countries like North Korea, for example, that's a structured country itself. And like you mentioned, they don't like the South, and the South don't like them. So these things, I find it, especially growing up in North America, it's interesting to hear, because we don't experience those things here.
Yeah, and that's so interesting. That's what I've learned too when I was traveling, you know, that it's like every country is so different, and they're so open, and they can say anything they want. And in Germany, it's like you have to be polite, the good girl, you know, don't go against the rules. And You know, I mean, it also depends where you live. I think Berlin is like much more open and multicultural, and it's really different there. But yeah, where I was coming from, that was really close to Stuttgart. And we say it was the Schwabenländle. So we call each other Schwaben. We have like a different accent. And, you know, it's just funny, you know, when I look at my grandparents, they just had to really fight for their freedom because they were growing up during the wartime. So I think it's just the whole energy is still in Germany, I would say, you know, the whole past, it's almost like, or I think especially the generation from my grandparents, they're still in this, you know, we have to control and we have to fight for our freedom, and you know, it has to be like this. And otherwise I think they maybe couldn't cope with so much freedom, you know. And it's just, it was a different time back then, but I think it is still kind of in the air in some certain parts. And I think it will change during the times, and the whole world is changing, I think, with COVID anyway, that it will change a lot in our society. But you know, I'm just so amazed when you go to New Zealand, like the people are so friendly, so open. Australians, so laid back, so relaxed. And I'm like, wow, okay, I can be relaxed. I can like, wow, that's amazing. You know, it's possible. I don't have to be like so stern and structured and, you know, control everything. It's like, no, you can let go and you just, you know, see what your life brings, you know, to you. And it's much more ease.
So through all your travels and your I guess hardships and so on and so forth, you made a name for yourself and you created a program, if I'm not mistaken, to help women to express themselves. So can you talk about that as well?
Yes, for sure. So yeah, I created my own coaching business about 2 years ago, and that was for me something which was on my heart for so long, because I loved always, I think I was always a coach to people, you know. Actually, always my friends came to me and they asked me for questions and guidance. Whatever I did, I was almost always like kind of like a mentor for like my friends or younger people, or sometimes even older people, which I'm really surprised. And yeah, so I started doing that, and it was really interesting because I started my coaching business with not really knowing how to actually be a coach. You know, I didn't do any certification, and I had another business coach that I hired, and she showed me a bit, you know, how to run a business and how to start it up and stuff. But I was really, I was starting in a cold sea, I would say. You know, I was just like, put it out there, you know. That's what I do, you know. I put myself out there and see what happens. And that's, you know, this is just always how I've been, you know. I learned by making mistakes and failures, and you know, it was really interesting. At the beginning, I didn't know where to start, and then I switched into speaking English to reach more people. And then, you know, after a while, it actually takes a lot of time, you know, for those out there who also have an online coaching business. It really takes a lot of time, a lot of patience, and you don't get clients straight away. And you also don't really know at the beginning who you're speaking to and what your niche is really. So that really comes after time. And then, you know, slowly after a while, I just gave a lot of free coaching sessions. And then it was interesting. I always attracted women into my life who had kids. It was always women with kids, and they always struggled, you know, with their time and just the balance. And I just helped them, guiding them through, you know, kind of their womanhood, although I didn't really had kids. So it was really interesting, you know, that they gave me so much trust, and that gave I gained so much trust in coaching, because I realized people really open up to me, and that was so wonderful to see. And then I just had this calling to create this program. I think it was this year. And it just came to me, and I did a lot of workshops on healing your heart, so a lot of forgiveness work, opening up your heart, and letting go of your past traumas. And it really became my mission and my big vision to help as many people as possible to heal their hearts. And I created this Wonder Woman program, and this name, it just came to me because it just clicked with me straight away. I actually watched the second movie of Wonder Woman, I think Wonder Woman 1984.
Yeah,
and I was into cinema, was watching the movie, and at the end I just cried because I could see myself in Wonder Woman so much. Like it's almost like I could feel her power, her mission, her vision. And I'm like, oh my God, that's what I would love to put in a program. So people realize that by healing the heart, by letting go, they can activate their own inner superpowers again. And especially women, I think we sometimes don't realize that we don't have to always mother everyone around us. Like, we really have to look after ourselves sometimes. And there's so much power within us, and so much strength. And yes, and then I created this wonderful coaching program where I guide women through reclaiming their power and creating the life in their own terms, and the life that they desire. So it's wonderful, because I feel like, in this Wonder Woman world, anything is possible. It's like a magical world. And I think a lot of times we don't believe in miracles anymore. We don't believe in magic. But once we actually tap into something that we can't explain and surrender, and I think especially also energy healing. So I became an energy healer, and that was actually when I was in Canada. And I did a Reiki course, Reiki certification. And then also when I was in Adelaide, Australia, I did my Reiki level 2. And that opened myself up to a whole different world. And I got really sensitive to energies, helped a lot of people through distance Reiki sessions, for example. And yes, and so I combine that now in this Wonder Woman program. So I teach about spirituality, about the energetics, so about really being first the Wonder Woman, and then taking the action from that space. Because I do believe that you first have to cultivate that energy inside of you to do all these things. In our society, we think we have to first do all the things and then we can be. But you have to be first, and then you can do, and then you embody that what you are, basically.
That is awesome. It's funny because my previous I did a podcast this morning, and one thing that the person said is that we're so busy doing that we forget to be. And I like that the fact that you touched base on that as well, is that we have to be before we do. And that's a full thing about being. It's called human being, not human doing. So that's actually, I like that you two never met before. I haven't even published that one yet. So it's very interesting that you said the same thing. That's actually interesting. I like that. I like that.
Wow. Yeah,
that is awesome.
That's the thing, though. What I also realized in my work, or when I'm doing podcast interviews, like I sometimes pick up things, it's like your intuition is working for you in that moment, and you're kind of tapping into something that you can't explain, and then you talk about the same thing as the other person did, and it's almost like, how is that actually possible? Like, how can you rationalize that in your mind? That is something you can't explain, and that's the magic, that we humans forgot, that it's in here, it's in this life. And if we, tap back into our superpowers, and we we really believe in ourselves again, and we actually think, oh my God, we can be superhuman. We can make ourselves like that. And yeah, anything is possible. It's like a different world then.
Yeah. That's very true.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Final thoughts, anything that you like to share, or did I miss anything?
What I've learned throughout my journey, throughout my healing journey, is that everything lies within you. Everything starts within you. So I remember that when I was younger, I was like a chameleon. So I always did what the other people did. I adapted myself really quickly. I'm also a Gemini, so I adapt myself quickly to my environments. And I actually can become like the person I'm with, which is interesting when you're when you have really close friends or a partnership, because then after a while you're like, oh God, I'm like them. It's really interesting. Yeah, what I want to say with that is that I think we have to come back to ourselves really by disconnecting from the outside world, by not always looking at what everyone else is doing, and really think about, what do I want? Who do I want to be in this lifetime? Because if you're just a copycat of someone else's life, other people will notice that, and subconsciously and energetically other people will feel that, and they don't really know you. So other people will never get to know you, how you really are. It will be really hard for you to get really intimate relationships. Will be really hard for you to open up and show your vulnerability. And so first of all, everything starts within yourself. And then also, be vulnerable, share your story, share your pains, and share your voice more. I think so many times we've been suppressed in our society by not speaking up for our own truth and speaking for what is really important for us. So I'm a really, really big advocate. I think, can I say that? A big advocate for, like, speaking up and speaking your truth, and saying what resonates with you. And it's a long journey, but it's a journey back home to yourself. And when you remember who you truly are in your essence, that you're magnificent, that you're worthy, and that no one can actually determine your worth, and no one can decide how much you're worth or how much you're good enough, because you are the person who decides that first. Then you can start to share that with others, and we can all come back together as a community, as a collective, and we realize that, wow, especially as a community, we can make big shifts happen. So what I also learned is there's so much power by people coming together with the same mindset, with the same beliefs, with the same values. And then that's when you can move mountains, and you make things, impossible things, possible. And I think especially this year's about that we have to come together. And I think through this whole virus, we think we're all so separate, and we don't want to be in contact anymore. But more than ever, I think this earth really needs healing. And healing for me means coming back together. And yes, these are my final thoughts for today. I hope that made sense what I said.
That works. Well, like always, this is Chainsaw Phoenix, aka David, with another podcast. Thank you so much, Renata, for this.
Thank you so much that I was here on your podcast, and thank you.